Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. I've got no rhythm. Today I'm going to do a book review of a book that is currently longlisted for the Booker Prize. The book I'm talking about is Seascraper by Benjamin Wood, a book that in my preview of the longlist when it was announced, I suggested that it wasn't a great title and quite a dull author name. But I managed to pick this up, a review copy, which I bought in a second-hand shop on Charing Cross Road called Any Amount of Books, and they sold this to me for £4.50 because this was sent out to somebody for review, and I don't believe, even read it, and then got someone to take it off their hands, and I bought it. So £4.50 for what would actually be a new hardback. I was quite pleased with that, and it's a short book, 160 pages, so I thought I would give this a go. A couple of things that made me slightly trepidatious. First one is there's this quote on the back, which a terrific quote, saying Britain's answer to Donna Tartt, a talent to treasure, from the Sunday Times, a paper of some repute, despite its ownership. And, you know, Britain's answer to Donna Tartt. Now, I'm guessing that was a review attached to an earlier book. This is the first and only Benjamin Wood that I've read. I'm guessing that review doesn't stem from the reading of this book. That's one thing. Second thing, right on the cover, you've got a huge talent by Hilary Mantel. The huge talent is the quote attributed to Hilary Mantel. Now, Hilary Mantel died in September 22. I'm not sure what the statute of limitations is on praise from dead authors, but yeah. That made me a little queasy, if I'm honest. You know, if that's what you're clinging on to, someone who's no longer with us, albeit, you know, fantastic. If you want someone to say something good about your talent as an author, stop wobbling. Hilary Mantel is the person you want to do it. But I think after she's passed on, it's a little disrespectful. Then on the back, also a quote is "A Beautiful Writer" by Andrew O'Hagan. I've read a book by Andrew O'Hagan. I remembered that I'd read a book by Andrew O'Hagan. I went to find it because I store all my books alphabetically, so it's very easy to find. Called "Be Near Me." I bought this in 2006, so that's almost 20 years ago. I don't remember much about it, so that wasn't a big seller. But so I went into this a little nervous because you know, the blurb made it sound like it was going to be quite dour and set in a small fishing village. I don't think it's, I mean, the village is named, I think, called Longferry. It's not a real town as far as I can tell. The time is quite indeterminate. I think maybe we're supposed to think 50s into the 60s. The village is supposed to be on the coast somewhere in the northwest of England. The author, I think, originally from Liverpool, or grew up on Merseyside, so somewhere around there, but it's never really explained. And I just was concerned it was going to be, albeit short and therefore eminently readable, a little dour and sad and small. And, you know, my journey, I left England 30 years ago, and so I read as much modern American literature as I read modern British literature, and I feel a difference between them, that there is a certain type of British novel which doesn't set its ambitions very far beyond its starting point, and I sometimes find that a little parochial and a little small town, and so probably if I had to choose, if I could only read one, I might veer towards American literature, even though I think modern American literature has its own problems and sort of very homogenized, MFA acceptable, written so that an agent will give you a contract, and you have to pull on all those heartstrings, personal stories, and any unique ethnic background has to come through, at least in your first novel or two, because that's what the agent and the publishing house is looking for in order to slot you on a shelf and fill in a gap. So yeah, there are problems with both, but as I say, sometimes I find English book, anyway, a lot of preamble, that I came into this book thinking, well, at least it's short, and I might not have picked it up if I hadn't found it at the price I found it, and I might not have read it at all. And I'm happy to say that would have been a shame, because I really enjoyed Seascraper for none of those preconceptions that I had about it. This book, Seascraper, has nothing at all like Britain's Answer to Donna Tartt. Uh, um, and while it does have that small town, constricted 60s smallness to it, our hero, well, our protagonist is a young man in his early 20s called Thomas Flett, whose job it is to get up every morning, harness his horse, take it down to the beach. He rides in the back of the wooden carriage with the horse down to the beach, throws out his net, and then I think it's called shanking in the vernacular of the book, is trying to catch shrimp. And at the end of each day, whatever he's caught, and he has to then sift through the nets and find what's sellable and what's rubbish, and he takes that catch and goes to the buyer and hands over a couple of baskets of shrimp, for which he receives cash ready money, and that's what he lives on from day to day. He lives with his mother, who is tired and aching and sore, and 36. So that's the nature we are in the 50s. Everyone was older than they ever needed to be. Thomas is sore and damp and aching and tired, and he's 20. He's not managed to complete his education because his grandfather, who was a shrimp catcher, a shanker before him, got old and was and died and was unable to continue, and Thomas just falls into it, and that's all he knows. And his mother makes him tea in the morning at 5 o'clock, and they're always tired and they're always damp, and none of their clothes are ever really clean or dry. And that throughout this whole book there is that mess and damp. They live by the sea. Everything's a bit salty. The horse is always a bit sweaty and tired and aching, and their joints are aching, and it's quite miserable, that first section, and then something comes into their lives, an opportunity, in the shape of a person who has something unusual to offer them, and with it comes some money, and not just the promise of money, but an actual check is written and taken to the post office to cash, and the idea that, oh, something good might come of this, and something, not the usual drudgery of just going out every day and doing it. And what he really wants to do, Thomas, is he's bought himself a guitar without telling his mother, and he hides it in the barn, and he's developing some songs and some thoughts and practicing some folk tunes, and he really wants to go to the night in the pub where he'll get to go on stage and maybe have the courage to play a few of his songs. So he's a man with dreams. He's a man with a rich inner life, just weighed down by the drudgery. And when this chance of something, an idea, another world intrudes upon theirs and opens up that maybe this could happen, something would be a little bit different, we light up, and he lights up, and his mother gets excited. And that's the first 60, 70 pages of this 160-page book. As I say, this comes in the form of a man who comes to visit them and says, I think you might help me with something. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. And there is a point where I grew concerned that we were going to go very quickly into tragedy, that the idea of introducing this element of hope was to see it dashed, and that the point of the story was going to be life is shit. And because it's a short book, I made it to the end, but I'm really trying to avoid that kind of sensibility in my life as well as in my reading, which just says life is shit, because I find that not conducive to a healthy existence. And maybe on some levels life is shit, but I would rather read books that avoid that kind of thing. I've read a fair amount of misery porn. I'm a big fan of the Hanya Yanagihara book, but I've also read stuff which felt unreal. I will defend A Little Life against the accusation of misery porn, because I think it has moments of beauty that are earned and fabulous. And Jude's Adoption remains, I think, one of the highlights of literature for me of the last 20 years. Anyway, getting off the point. I was worried that this was just going to be miserable, but it's not that book. and I love what the author did, and I love the journey he took us on. And how do I say this? The book is sentimental, and I mean that in the highest praise that I can give a book that prizes sentimentality and emotion and hope and goodness and kindness. And I think rather than Donna Tartt, I think the comparison for this work, at least, and I don't know Benjamin Wood's work, what came to me was Claire Keegan, where I started with small things like these, and then read Foster, and I've read a couple of other things, that little collection, So Late in the Day, and then went back to an early collection of hers. But small things like these and Foster are absolute high watermarks for literature in the last 5-10 years for me, because they're about human capacity for kindness and goodness, and that's the goal, and that's the point of this weird existence that we're all undergoing. And I think that's something that we have here. So, you know, if you're not someone who gets sentimental, you're not someone who cries, then maybe there's less here. It's not manipulative. As I say, I think because there's this bleakness and this weather as a metaphor is rarely more powerful than we have here. But I think then what we get feels earned and gorgeous and uplifting, and, as I say, sentimental in the best possible way. I very much enjoyed this. Seascraper by Benjamin Wood. Hope you're keeping well. God bless. Bye.